Estamos esperando que se acomode la oradora inicial.
Very well. As we pick up our meeting, I would like to give the floor then first to Ambassador from Costa Rica. Costa Rica has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Chairman, those here in the room, we truly appreciate member states who promoted inclusion of this item on the agenda to commemorate the World Social Justice Day in this hemispheric forum. This initiative reflects the shared recognition that social justice builds an essential pillar for democracy, integral development, and the prevalence of human rights in the Americas, as is enshrined in the Charter of the Organization of American States. Thank you very much to the panelists who were with us today, the Professor Rodrigo Primi from Colombia, Ambassador Feller from the Secretariat of Foreign Relations of Mexico, and of course, Dr. Palomo, who is with us here in the room, the Special Rapporteur for Rights here at the ISDHR. Thank you very much, Madam Palomo, for your presence. Mr. Chairman, for Costa Rica, social justice is an operative program that should translate into public policies which are geared towards effectively slashing poverty, inequality, and social inclusion. This is in keeping with the objectives of the inter-American system, because we do understand that integral development, the elimination of poverty, and the reduction of inequalities are imperative conditions for democratic stability, lasting peace, and thus the full exercise of human rights of everyone. In this regard, then, we recognize the crucial role of the Inter-American System of Human Rights, and particularly the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, and of course, the Special Rapporteurship on Economic, Social, Cultural, and Environmental Rights in the development of standards that promote models of development which are much more fair, inclusive, and based on human rights. This approach is particularly pertinent in a region where structural inequality still exists that affects the full-fledged participation of people in public life and the sustainability of democratic institutions. From a national perspective, I wanted to share with you that Costa Rica has included social justice as a cross-cutting pillar in its public policies, promoting decent work, social protection, gender equality, inclusion of populations who are in vulnerable situations, and a fair transition towards models of development which are sustainable. These efforts are geared towards straining real access to rights, reducing socioeconomic gaps, and promote more equitable and resilient societies. In the inter-American arena, Costa Rica will continue to spearhead initiatives that strengthen technical cooperation, the exchange of good practices, and development of consistent, coherent policies with the principle of social justice, in keeping with the commitments taken on by member states in the Charter of the OAS, in the Social Charter of the Americas, and in the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Mr. Chairman, the challenges that our region is grappling with call on us to have collective responses based on solidarity, cooperation, and multilateralism. Social justice is not just a normative ideal, but rather an essential condition for democratic stability, social cohesion, and sustainable development of our societies. Costa Rica reiterates its willingness to continue working constructively with all member states who are represented in this permanent council, with the bodies and agencies of the OAS and the strategic partners, with a view to moving towards societies which are more fair, just, inclusive, and resilient, where social justice is consolidated as an effective pillar of development, democracy, and human rights in the hemisphere. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Our hosts, with the thanks from the Permanent Council for the commemoration that we just celebrated. You have the floor, Grenada.
Excellencies, On this World Day of Social Justice, Grenada is pleased to associate with the remarks on the scoring in the visible link between human dignity, integral development, and human rights. For a small island developing state, those like ours, social justice is not simply a policy objective. It is indeed the framework through which our people experience opportunity and resilience. Grenada has long viewed social justice through a people-centered development lens. Our national initiatives, such as the Youth Empowerment Program, the universal access to primary health care, and our renewed focus on women's entrepreneurship and rural livelihood, despite scarcity of resources, are rooted in the belief that justice must be felt at the local level. We also recognize the interconnected nature of rights: economic, social, cultural, environmental. Our efforts to improve housing, expand climate-resilient agriculture, and digitize public services are all driven by this holistic view of dignity and development. Social justice for us also means intergenerational justice, ensuring that our children inherit fairer, safer, and more sustainable society. As we engage multilaterally, Grenada calls for stronger mechanisms of cooperation and solidarity that respect national contexts while advancing our shared hemispheric goals. Let us on this occasion use it in this observance to renew our collective resolve to center justice in the Inter-American project, because justice, as was said earlier, indeed is not an abstraction. It is the very reality that our people deserve and of the people we serve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Guyana has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our presenters for their contribution to this topic. As we commemorate this year's World Day of Social Justice, Guyana reaffirms its commitment to ensuring that every person has the opportunity, within our means, to live with dignity, with access to decent work, education, health care, and social protection, and that no individual or community should be left behind because of age, gender, religious belief, ethnicity, disability, or social status. Today, as we reflect on all the progress we have made as a region, we recognize that there is still much work to do in promoting systems and policies that uphold human dignity, protect fundamental rights, and foster sustainable and inclusive development for present and future generations. Chair, the government of Guyana has taken a rights-based approach coupled with developing a sense of responsibility and contribution in progressing our national development. This approach empowers vulnerable populations as it seeks to close disparities between rural and urban areas and expand access to essential services such as housing, healthcare, education, and connectivity. Guyana has been developing active national commissions such as the Women and Gender Equality, Ethnic Relations Commission, and the Rights of the Child, seeking to oversee the mainstreaming of gender equality and social inclusion across all policies and programs, promoting empowerment, equity, and equal opportunities. These concerted efforts underscore Guyana's belief that sustainable development is achievable only when human rights and social justice are firmly embedded in national and regional policies. We will continue working with fellow member states to promote development that is people-centered, inclusive, and rooted in fairness. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. The Dominican Republic has the floor. Mr. Chairman, the delegation of the Dominican Republic thanks the chair of this permanent council for including on today's agenda the commemoration of the World Social Justice Day based on social justice, integral development, and human rights slogan. This is a central point for upholding our democracies. We would like to express our recognition and acknowledgement of Professor Primi and Ambassador Feller and Dr. Palomo for their very valuable reflections that enrich our hemispheric debate on the indivisible relationship between human rights development and social justice. Social justice cannot be conceived as an abstract aspiration. It is a commitment with human dignity, the reduction of poverty, the reduction of inequalities, and the real effective use of economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights. And as such, our Organization of American States recognizes this in the pertinent chapter in the Charter, where it stipulates that eradication of critical or extreme poverty, integral development, and social justice are the shared responsibility and sine qua non conditions for democratic stability. Democracy and development are parallel paths. They mutually reinforce themselves. We have this as our state of the policy. We have action geared towards reducing poverty and inequality via broadening programs for social protection, the strengthening of access to education and health, promotion of formal employment, and support of the most vulnerable sectors. These policies aim to not alleviate necessities, but also to create real opportunities for social mobility and sustainable development. As such, then, we have promoted reforms and initiatives which are geared toward consolidating inclusive economic growth with an emphasis on territorial integrity, gender equality, and protection of fundamental rights. We understand that social justice requires solid institutions, transparency in public management, and citizens' participation. These are elements that strengthen trust in democracy. Mr. Chairman, we recognize that very important progress has been made in our region and in our country. Nonetheless, we are also aware that there are still challenges that call on us to develop our efforts. Social justice is permanent work that calls for political will, regional cooperation, and a lens based on human rights. In this commemoration, we reaffirm our commitment with the commitments enshrined in the Charter of the OAS and in building more just, fair, inclusive, and solid societies. That's the only way we can guarantee that will come up with tangible results in the life of our people, and that integral development is truly for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Jamaica has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Distinguished Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, prominent representatives, good afternoon. It is an honor to address on behalf of the Jamaican delegation this regular meeting of the Permanent Council as we commemorate World Day of Social Justice. We'd like to thank the delegation of Chile for facilitating this important issue on today's agenda. The delegation of Jamaica extends sincere appreciation to the distinguished presenters who guided our reflections today, Mr. Rodrigo Yepes of Colombia, Ambassador Jennifer Feyer, the Director General for Human Rights and Democracy of the Secretariat for Foreign Affairs of Mexico, and Dr. Javier Plumno Lantes, Special Rapporteur on Economic, Social, Cultural, and Environmental Rights of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Your leadership and advocacy continue to enrich the hemispheric dialogue on social justice, integral development, and human rights. Mr. Chair, World Day of Social Justice was declared on the 26th of November 2007 and first commemorated in 2009. Since then, it's commemorated in February of each year. This important day calls on us to confront inequality, exclusion, and structural barriers that deny individuals and communities the full enjoyment of their human rights. For the countries of the Americas, diverse in culture, history, and levels of development, the pursuit of social justice remains both an urgent necessity and a shared responsibility. Social justice is not just an abstract aspiration. It is a lived reality of access to education, health care, decent work, social protection, food security, and a healthy environment. It is reflected in the capacity of our institutions to protect our people, to uphold the rule of law, and to ensure equal opportunity for all. We can all agree that integral development, as articulated in the American system, reminds us that economic growth cannot be achieved in isolation. Development must be people-centered, rights-based, and sustainable. It must address poverty and inequality not only as an economic condition, but as cross-cutting multidimensional challenges of discrimination, climate vulnerability, digital divides, and democratic governance. For small island developing states such as Jamaica, social justice is inextricably linked to resilience. Climate events, natural disasters, and external economic shocks disproportionately affect our most vulnerable communities. Advancing social justice therefore requires strengthening social protection systems, investing in human capital, expanding access to digital technologies, and fostering inclusive economic participation. As we reflect today, let me take this opportunity to underscore the following key imperatives being undertaken by the government of Jamaica. Strengthening democratic governance and the rule of law as an essential enabler of social justice. Transparent institution and participatory process build trust and empower citizens. Investing in youth, deepening regional cooperation. No state can address inequality in isolation. Through dialogue, technical cooperation, and solidarity with organizations such as the OAS, which provides the mechanism to share experience, mobilize resources, forge partnerships with the private sector, and advance common standards. The government of Jamaica remains committed to advancing policies that promote equity, inclusion, and sustainable development consistent with our national priorities and our obligations under the Inter-American Human Rights Framework. In commemorating World Day of Social Justice, let us renew our collective resolve to build societies where opportunity is not determined by circumstance, where rights are not theoretical but tangible, and where development leaves no one behind. Mr. Chair, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Guatemala has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Within the framework of commemorating the World Social Justice Day, under the slogan Social Justice, Integral Development, and Human Rights, Guatemala reaffirms its commitment to build a more inclusive, equitable society. This commitment is reflected in the implementation of public policies and other programs that guarantee education, health, economic development, security, and social development, so that the benefits of development get to those who most need it. The government of Guatemala has strengthened its lens of social development by other innovative focus initiatives, the intersectoral initiatives hand in hand, articulated with many different organizations to deal with multidimensional poverty and underdevelopment, poor nutrition in different areas. This allows us to identify resources. In 2025, we had more than 300,000 different activities, including better housing, better school, water, productive agriculture, and others, benefiting thousands of families directly. Guatemala has spearheaded other social programs which are emblematic. Programs of good housing, education, in addition, food security, permanency, no dropouts, university access, and the diversity building, integral development. We have focused based on the RCH, ensuring that the benefits should, in point of fact, go to those who most need them. Now, in education and health, we have opened up the quality of services. More than 25,000 educational centers have been included, and we have contracted teachers and implemented scholarships to strengthen opportunities for education and health. We have new health units on post to strengthen access to drugs and have better intention for maternal childhood care. These initiatives have an integral development approach, which includes social justice. Mr. Chairman, the report on the situation of human rights in Guatemala recognizes that these public policies contribute to guaranteeing the enjoyment of social, economic, environmental rights. The ICHR underscores social development and has implemented programs that strengthen these rights, particularly when it comes to health, food, water, employment, water with a territorial, intercultural, and non-discriminatory approach. And this recognition means that national efforts are part of good practices in social justice and that are aligned with the work of the rapporteurship, Radesca. We truly appreciate their support. Guatemala also values international cooperation and the fruitful dialogue with multilateral organizations, civil society, the private sector, to exchange experiences and replicate good practice and strengthen capacities. The country reaffirms that social justice requires integral policies which can be sustained based on evidence which respond to the immediate needs and that guarantee opportunities for development, inclusion, dignity for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Guatemala. Permanent observers now have the floor, beginning with France.
Thank you, Chair. Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, permanent representatives, colleagues, I'd like to thank the presenters. And social justice must be at the heart of our agenda. And this was the topic of the Doha Summit. And we were spearheading this in Doha. We had 120 projects throughout the world. This summit allowed us to look at the economic, social, and environmental aspects of sustainable development, and we must fight against inequality. It is a priority. France has presented initiatives which contribute to the 2030 agenda in sustainable development. Advance women's, include workers in the formal sector, vocational education, and financing social welfare protection. The Doha Declaration, which was adopted at the summit, can help us take steps in favor of social development. And we need to look at the inter-American system. France is helping to support a project to fight against illegal mining in Guyana, and this is hand in hand with the IACHR. This will protect the rights of those who are affected by illegal mining while taking into account the social and economic effects of this. It shows social justice, environmental protection, and the respect for human rights are linked. The priorities also guide France's action in the framework of its presidency at the head of the G7. We want a better and fairer kind of development where we leave no one behind. In this day of commemorating social justice, we reaffirm our commitment to work together with the member states of the OAS to make social justice a concrete reality at the service of human rights. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. The Holy See has the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. The delegation of the Holy See appreciates the inclusion of this point on the agenda of the Permanent Council. World Social Justice Day gives us an appropriate time to commemorate and look at the needs of all people and to build more fair societies. And social justice is increasingly more important because it presupposes development where general justice will regulate social relations according to the principles of compliance with the law. Social justice is a demand which is related to social issues, which currently has a worldwide dimension and refers to social, political, economic aspects, and particularly the structural dimensions of the problems and their solutions. In the current context, social justice is especially significant since the value of people, their dignity, and their rights are seriously threatened because of the tendency to use or go after self-gain. Leon 14 speaks about justice, and we have to respect the rights of each one and establish human relations, harmony that promotes equity, respect for all people, and the common good. This is an aim with guarantees and order in defense of the weak, and which promotes justice because they are victims of oppression, exclusion, or indifference. End quote from the Pope. And in the context of the Americas, then, inequalities show up, and the lack of access to broad sectors of the population, to dignified work, to housing, to property and basic services is what is there. In the trafficking of persons and migratory issues have their consequences. The expressions of xenophobia and discrimination and the asymmetries between countries and within them themselves, and the level of these issues. So in the face of these realities, it is necessary to have public policies and a equitable distribution of resources that allows us to correct these structures that generate poverty and lead to integral and solid development for all of humanity. In other words, to promote for all men and for mankind these things. Mr. Chairman, the Holy See values the role of the OAS as a space of dialogue and inter-American cooperation, and renews its willingness to cooperate everything to protect processes that contribute to the common good in the light of societies that move towards more fair and humane societies. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Holy See, and I now give the floor to Spain.
Thank you, Chair. I am taking the floor to commemorate the World Day of Social Justice under the slogan, Integral Development, Human Rights, and Social Justice, to express commitment to social justice as a condition for democracy and to ensure human rights. Spain is a country where we show solidarity and we aspire to equality and social justice, and we support the 2030 Agenda decisively. I would like to support the long-standing work that Redesca has been doing, the special rapporteurship for economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights of the IACHR and its rapporteur, Javier Palomo. We are in the origin of the creation of this rapporteurships in 2016. It began with the Spain Fund for Cooperation. During this time, we have supported the development of valuable work addressing the rights of Native peoples, the right to health, social responsibility of businesses, climate change, the climate crisis, or the human right to water, and currently a project about tax justice. We share the vision that has been expressed by Rapporteur Palomo that social justice is inseparable from tax justice and its linkage to climate justice and the need for the involvement in decision-making with groups who are vulnerable and have been excluded again historically, including the involvement of women. And I want to make a point with respect to my country. In 2016, we began to push social justice through the regularization of 500,000 immigrants to ensure their rights and bring them into the labor market. Then the extension of social welfare programs to protect children and legal reforms to protect the truth and honor of people. And also, we promote gender equality and climate equality. As I have stated previously, the OAS, at its basis, it has social justice and Roots of Peace by Carlo Pais Blolo in 1960. We continue to work for those same principles. For Spain, it is an honor, it is an ethical commitment to support the OAS and its member states in this endeavor. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. And as there are no further requests for the floor. We have taken note of the wonderful presentations and also your interventions. This has been a space for dialogue to renew our commitments to social justice as a building block of the inter-American system, and in keeping with the commitments undertaken pursuant to the OAS Charter. Let us now move on to the fifth item on our order of business. And at the behest of the Secretary General, we actually are not going to have item 5 today. We will move that on to our next meeting. And so today we're going to now address item 6, commemoration of the Day of Women of the Americas, women's economic rights as a key to development. At the behest of Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Canada, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama, Peru, the Dominican Republic, and Uruguay, we will now proceed to commemorate the Day of Women in the Americas, which is celebrated on February 18th, under the slogan, Economic Rights of Women Key to Development. To begin this commemoration, I am pleased to offer the floor to Ms. Alejandra Mora Mora, the Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission of Women. We are going to hear from her through a video presentation. Ms. Mora Mora, you have the floor, and I ask the Secretariat to please put out the video. Thank you. Thank you to the Chair of the Permanent Council. I greet you, and I'd like to greet the Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, ambassadors, and I would like to present Minister Calapsios, who is the president of the CIM, the Inter-American Commission of Women. This February 18th, we commemorate the Day of Women in the Americas and the 98 years of the Inter-American Commission of Women. For almost a century, the CIM has been a space where the demands of women and agreements with the states can come to fruition thanks to the joint work between governments, experts, and women's organizations. We have consolidated instruments and commitments that guide the best responses to fight discrimination, violence, and the inequality gap. As the president of the CIM, at this time, I renew the commitment of keeping this dialogue alive so that equality is translated into effective public policies and concrete results. Let's continue to take care of the CIM as a common house of women in the Americas, and let us build equality with dialogue, evidence, political will, and budget. Thank you very much. It is an honor to participate in today's council meeting, which is the Day of Women of the Americas, and because it is the anniversary of the Inter-American Commission of Women. 98 years ago, it was created during the 6th International Conference of the Pan-American Union, an ode to all women who have been the guardians of equality. Since the inclusion of the CIM in the OAS, we have been supporting the efforts of member states to ensure equality between men and women in the framework of the pillars of the organization, in keeping with our strategic plan and the mandates that are provided by the OAS. Under these mandates in recent years, economic rights have proliferated on our agenda. Investigations and research on care, laws, which are also extending to the private sector to take co-responsible measures with respect to care and to have a work-life balance. This production of the CIM had been important inputs which were presented before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights when 3198, which established the right of care as a human right. And we have a model law to include women in the economy, and we have the concept of financial well-being, financial literacy, among others. This instrument has to do with another, which also talks about special measures for labor inclusion of women, based on the best practices at a regional level, thanks to the support of France. And we also are trying to close the digital divide for women. We want to continue to strengthen the legal framework because we've been listening to women's voices, especially the voices of the special guests who are with us. This is why we are promoting economic rights of women beyond the need to overcome gaps between men and women at an economic level, opportunities to generate income. We also want women to be able to realize themselves personally, to give their talent, to show their capabilities, to have their own income, their own agency and purpose. We talk so much about mental health problems. The sense of self-realization is important. The remunerated work allows women to be economically independent, helps them have self-esteem. This also allows them to make decisions in many sectors to be able to get out of a cycle of violence. And this has an economic impact not only on their own well-being, but also on the family's well-being. 35% of households in our region have a woman as the main breadwinner. And even when this is not the case, their income is important. Most families need two incomes to move forward. The World Bank has pointed out that releasing the economic potential of women with remunerated work and entrepreneurship could actually help the economies of the region advance and can reduce poverty and promote prosperity in our countries, because women invest 90% of their income in their families and communities. 90%. And closing the gender gap could mean $7 billion for the world economy. To conclude, to help women have remunerated work, to change the care economy, and to overcome gaps is beneficial for half the population, women. And not just for them, but this has an effect on the well-being of families and communities and women who uphold the social fabric and the economy in general. So in the framework of the work being done between the SEAM, Redesca, and others, we need to redouble our joint efforts in pro of the economic rights of those in our region. We are upholding economic rights of women because we believe that they need to have their needs met. The region needs very strong and powerful instruments to help half the population so women can realize their economic rights and also reverse this inequality that exists in the region. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the Secretary of the SEAM, Alejandra Mora. This commemoration is so important on our agenda. And so this is something we commemorate on February 18th, the Day of the Women in the Americas. And this is essential for the progress of all peoples and societies in the Americas, the economic rights of women, because this is key for development. Thanks to the illustrative presentation you just made, Secretary Mora. and we appreciate what the Ambassador of Panama has stated. I would ask the Secretariat to now show us the video of Ms. Margaret Colello, the National Coordinator of the Brazilian Support Service for Micro Enterprises and Small Businesses.
I'm very honored to address this session of the Permanent Council of the OAS, and I truly appreciate the Executive Secretary, Alexander Mora, and the SIM for the generous invitation to share the Brazilian experience in this discussion, which is so crucial for the futures of our societies. To celebrate the women of the Americas is to celebrate 98 years of an entire career that began when women's voices still fought to be included in the Voice of Nations, and it's also to recognize that every achievement made in this path was decided because of the courageousness and bravery of women to accept the economy was exclusively at that time just in the hands of men. When we look at the rights and the history of rights of men, we know that we're looking at a narrative of doors that opened too slowly, the progress which for so long denied credit to women, these doors of companies which even pay lower salaries for dignified work of women. These decision-making doors have been closed to economic decisions where women are rare. But this history also tells us and teaches us that every door open for women makes it easier to move in with others behind them, and particularly in this context, as SEBRAE knitted together its work. SEBRAE was born in 2019 as a response for an assessment that we couldn't overlook. 10 million Brazilian women accepted their own or had their own businesses, but we know that this number hid the many asymmetries that were there. We know that the rate of women's work is less than women, and the salaries between entrepreneurs, between men and women, is more than 25 some odd percent, and that black women, this difference is even radically more egregious. We know that many of these women who did things not because of opportunity but vocation were there because of need. The former way of work and work closed their doors. They had to head up their families, and we had to insist that society precisely take a good look just at them. We had to put together programs, management programs. We had to offer credit for these women as well. We have a program that represented women's work and slashed barriers, not just economic ones, but cultural as well as structural barriers. SEBRAE structured 3 pillars that reflect this understanding. It was dedicated to personal development and to strengthening self-esteem, because we know that if women were historically taught to doubt their own capacity, this means that we had to offer management tools, access to the markets, and technical training. And we recognize that the force of women multiply when they connect together, when they form network, when they're part of a whole, and they put together whole communities. In 5 years of existence, operating today in all the 27 states of Brazil, SEBRAE, for them, has 16,000 some odd women. Of this total, 3,800,000 have put together their business, and they have their CNJP. They are recognized and contribute to the Brazilian economy, and they conquered rights hitherto unknown for them. With these numbers, no matter how big they are only part of the story. The real transformation happens when a woman thought that she couldn't get in, found out that she was able to, as an entrepreneur that worked in an isolated way and finds others with the same challenges. And finally, we have been able to have growth for those businesses. This is what they realized with the support. So we complemented this equation with initiatives that recognizes the diversity of women's or female entrepreneurship. SEBRAE celebrates and makes visible these hard workers in 5 categories, including technology and innovation, because we know that women are present in all sectors, including in those that historically were excluded. The program of technical entrepreneurs involves with the Ministry of Development and Industry and Services, and this speeds up business headed up by women in technology, combating other facts where 25% of people were innovators in Brazil. Now, when women got their economy, when they generate their own income and they take decisions as to how to use that income, a whole chain of transformations take place. Women have more voice in family decisions, more abilities to protect themselves and to protect their children in situations of violence, more wherewithal to provide for the next generations. Feminine economic autonomy is not just part of the movement, it's a tool for freedom which is intergenerational and overcomes subordination. And that is why we believe that policies for female entrepreneurship cannot be taken as some kind of benevolence. No, this is a strategic investment for the future of our countries. Now, when we train a female entrepreneur, we're not just helping an individual, we are strengthening the entire network of communities. We're diversifying the economy and we are consolidating the social fabric in our countries. The path that I recognize is there, and even with all of the progress made, Brazilian women still earn less than men. There are still more problems in getting credit. There are double or triple challenges out there. They still have to prove their competence when male competence is presumed. So each woman is now strengthened, and this represents a door that is opening, which will not close again. The SIM, over the course of almost a century, continues to be a guardian of this memory and requires work constantly. Today, in celebrating together this Day of Women of the Americas, we reaffirm their economic rights of all women. This is not a sectoral issue, but rather a fundament and bedrock that any development project must necessarily include and uphold this for our Americas. May this panel be one more step that began in 1928 and which will continue to strive for economic equality between men and women, and that this will not just be an inspiration but will become a real daily reality in every corner of the continent. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a usted, señor.
Thank you so much. Margaret Coelho, National Coordinator of the Brazilian Service to support micro enterprises and small businesses. And we hope that that wonderful work you are doing to create networks for support can multiply in all countries. And I hope we can hear about best practices from the member states. So we thank the delegation of Brazil for facilitating the participation of Ms. Coelho in this commemoration. To conclude with these initial presentations, it is a pleasure to greet and give the floor to Ms. Daria Balatsky, co-founder of Alga Biosciences. You are welcome to the Permanent Council, and you have the floor, madam. So let's move on.
Thank you so much. So first off, I want to say a big thank you for inviting me to be a panelist. I am excited and honored to contribute to the conversation today. My name is Daria Balatsky, and I am one of the co-founders of Alga Biosciences. We are essentially focusing on enteric methane, or cowburps. So we make products that redirect molecules that would become methane into molecules that the animal can use to actually produce meat or milk. And so this presents an opportunity to make animals more efficient while also reducing their methane emissions, which is one of the largest anthropogenic sources of emissions. So when I saw the prompt for the commemoration of the Day of Women of the Americas, I reflected on my experience as a young female entrepreneur. I've been doing ALGA for about 4.5 years. So each year I feel a little less young. But prior to starting ALGA Biosciences, I was a graduate student at the University of California, Berkeley in chemistry. So ALGA was not connected to my research, but rather a side project that I was working on with a friend who ultimately became my future co-founder. We were doing it on weekends and after work, and it ended up blossoming into a real commitment and company. So at first we were funding it ourselves, but with our first external check, we were able to set up a lab space, make a very bespoke product, and ultimately work with a university to do our first live animal trial that demonstrated methane reductions of 98%. This moment was a defining moment where I had to decide between continuing my PhD or jumping into the company full time. I ultimately left the PhD because it felt as one of those opportunities that only presents itself once. And I felt that the PhD as an institution would remain, but the ephemeral nature of the company and the enteric methane space might not. And I think that's one of the greatest opportunities with entrepreneurship is the opportunity to have an outsized impact, and to skip some steps that to get that impact in comparison with typical otherwise job pipelines. So in my experience, being an entrepreneur is the hardest job I've ever had. It is living in constant uncertainty. It's learning many topics very quickly. It's building the majority of things yourself, whether that's the technology or internal to the company. And usually you are trying to solve a very big and very hard problem. It is also an incredibly rewarding job. Creating your own company with a vision you believe in and working with some of the smartest, most committed and talented people on a common goal is extremely rewarding. And starting ALGA has permanently shaped what I think is possible. I used to be much more afraid of failure, but now I am much more afraid of not trying in the first place. So what makes entrepreneurship easier or harder? The short answer is resources. For a hard technology company like ours, which I'm defining that as people who are building physical things, having early investment is critical. So one of the first valleys of death, they call it, in science-based companies is at the beginning, science is very expensive, so it's difficult to self-finance, but external investment typically wants to see some scientific results before presenting additional capital. And so you end up in this chicken and egg situation where it's very difficult to get the resources you need just to start. This is where university, government, and private incubators that supply initial amounts of even $10,000 to $50,000 can be critical to getting additional capital later. Even better than just the money is an incubator where organizations offer the space to start building. So, for example, physical engineering spaces, physical laboratory spaces, or even computational time as resources. If you cannot offer physical space, many aspects of a startup are difficult, but the building blocks for startups have usually already been solved. It's just about facilitating access to that information. And so I mean with that is starting a company usually involves registering the company, getting your tax documents, your internal documents in order, and that kind of information exists, but oftentimes can be difficult to access. In particular, if you're a female entrepreneur and you historically have less access to the financial sector. So this is what we had access to through our experience going through an incubator called Y Combinator. As someone who had limited exposure prior, the support at the beginning in both developing the company and the resources to start with the science saved an enormous amount of time on our part and really expedited the success of the company. At later stages, government grants that are accessible can also be immeasurably important. One example is the California Department of Food and Agriculture has funded many of our projects, which we do in partnership with California universities. And these results end up being critical for getting additional capital later on. It's also a good opportunity for us when we work in agriculture. It's a good opportunity to make sure that we're in alignment with serving what our government institutions are looking from the agricultural sector. So it can be a good way to align incentives between the public and private sectors. And also those results are made public. So ultimately, whether it's earlier funding or later stage funding, what really is helpful is avenues for fair money. And what I'm defining as fair money is money that is awarded with a perspective of a 10-year time horizon to make sure that IP and equity requirements don't preclude future investments. So I think it's really important that that financing is given in a way such that that company can continue to exist, and 6 years later, if they have to get additional money, they aren't hindered based on early agreements, which you oftentimes see when folks aren't considering the long time horizon for these types of businesses. So finally, and less tangibly, is culture. Startups and entrepreneurship begets other startups and entrepreneurship, but they don't happen passively. They come from investment into those endeavors by community for many years. I don't know that ALGA would have happened at a different university and at a different context without the support of the startup and entrepreneurship ecosystem. So that culture feeds into making businesses possible with resources and mentorship and accessibility to the ideas that opening a company is even an option. And that supports female and male entrepreneurs alike. Thank you again.
Muchas gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, Ms. Belatsky, for your presentation. We'd like to offer the floor now to the permanent missions. I've been told that Chile first would like to read a statement. Costa Rica, if you would allow Chile to do so, we'd appreciate it. Chile, you have the floor. Thank you very much. We appreciate the flexibility of Costa Rica. We would want to thank the panelists who are with us and who spoke to this commemoration, Ms. Mora Mora, Ms. Margaret Coelho, and Ms. Daria Balatsky. Chair, I have the honor to speak on behalf of different missions: Brazil, Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Panama, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. Today, the American Day for Women, we have a space where we can promote equality and the rights of women. From its origins, our region has showed that multilateral dialogue can lead to public policies which have specific impacts on people. Today, our reality is that we cannot continue to postpone this. Women must be able to fully exercise their economic rights. We need to eliminate all forms of discrimination and obstacles for women, especially those that have to do with the care economy. It not only violates their rights, but also undermines the cohesion of our societies. Economic participation of women in all their diversity in terms or equal terms can lead to economic and technological transformations. Women and girls are indispensable for productivity and collective welfare. As the result of the 6th Conference on Women in Latin America and Caribbean, a Tlatelolco commitment was signed where we talked about going towards a fair economy of care. And I want to recognize the paradigm where Latin America and the Caribbean are put on a path for equality and peace for our good and the planet's good. And so member states of the OAS undertook commitments such as the Lima Declaration with respect to exercising the economic rights of women and the technical work of the Inter-American Commission of Women who supported this. The model law on care shows an agenda where we appreciate the work of care that allows for public policies where we have more independent women in harmony with national realities. At the same time, we appreciate the role of Permanent Council as a forum where different perspectives come together with respect to public policies, a safe place for everyone. Diversity in our Americas is a strength. It allows us to learn, to move forward with pragmatic initiatives, and to respond to our challenges through interculturality and intersectionality. We believe that the economic rights of all women must be addressed in an integral, intersectional, and intercultural way that considers the equitable access to education, to work, to finance, to entrepreneurship, to innovation and digital transformation, and that we have legal advancements. We are referring to the advisory opinion of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which recognizes the right to care. And these are opportunities not only for competitiveness, but also to sustain our economies, which can lead to inclusive growth and universality of our welfare and the environment. Chair, esteemed delegations, in this constructive spirit, we want to formulate a call to all of you to continue to strengthen hemispheric dialogue with respect to this agenda, promoting technical and volunteer cooperation, which allows us to share best practices. We call upon the Permanent Council to continue to support initiatives and respecting national priorities and diversity, which allows us to give a more visible profile to initiatives to strengthen the economic autonomy of women as a component for democratic development and a shared economy in the Americas. We reaffirm our willingness to work in a constructive and inclusive way with all delegations, recognizing that the challenges that women face are need mutual understanding and a collective understanding. Thank you.
Tomado atenta nota y
Thank you very much. We've taken due note, and we'd like to thank Alejandro Mora, Ambassador Alejandro Mora, for her permanent ongoing service to help out and understanding. Right now, we give her the floor. Costa Rica has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I should like to thank the distinguished panelists who have been with us this afternoon with very inspiring participation, especially the Minister of Panama, Mr. Palacios, President of SIM, Alejandro Mora Mora, Secretary, Executive Secretary of SIM itself, and Manuel Coelho from Brazil, and Daria Balatsky, co-founder of Alga Biosciences. Thank you very much to be with us today. Mr. Chairman, in commemorating the Day for Women in the Americas, Costa Rica echoes recognition of the historic struggle of women in the continent for equality, full-fledged participation, and the real exercise of their rights. This date reminds us that the progress made in the inter-American system should continue to be translated into real opportunities for economic autonomy and a life free of violence for all women. In this context, my country reaffirms its commitment to strengthen inter-American standards of equality, parity, and non-discrimination, as well as to promote female leadership and to promote policies that promote economic autonomy for all women, recognizing their essential contributions to sustainable development and prosperity of our societies. We are very proud to underscore the recent election of Doña Laura Fernández Delgado as the next president of the Republic of Costa Rica. This is a reflection of the progress made towards greater participation of women in decision-making and in the role of our democratic institutions. In this organization, we have also made an historic step forward, electing our first Assistant Secretary General, a woman who's present here, Ambassador Laura Gil Abastano. And we hope that very soon we will make another historical step in the United Nations, electing the first woman as Secretary General. Mr. Chairman, that may this commemoration inspire us to continue building a region of the Americas which is much more fair, inclusive, just, and equitable for everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. El Salvador has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the delegations who included this and to the panelists in the commemoration of the Day of Women of the Americas under the slogan, Economic Rights of Women as a Key for Development. We truly believe that economic freedom of women is a strategic investment that is underway. This is based on a model and a strategy for the cycle of life, which protects each and every person from certain situations and thus ensuring that no woman should have to choose between economic development, their security, and the security of their families. According to our experience, we have learned that economic autonomy of women is not just done with one policy, but rather with laws, services, and institutions that are strong. This shores up conditions for economic autonomy of women as a key component to broaden their access for sustainable development and the well-being of their homes. Under this lens of Mr. Bukele, the Economic National Plan promotes productive transformation in the food sector, logistics, and technology, generating opportunities for full-fledged participation of women in entrepreneurship in a sustainable way. Economic empowerment also is translated into real access to resources through the Fund for Entrepreneurship and Capital for Work. $1.5 million have been injected into women's units, representing 49% of credit that has been given, emphasizing sustainability and technology. The guarantee line for women's entrepreneurship eliminates bank traditional barriers for SMEs that are headed up by women, whilst we have had more than 1,000 spaces for marketing with more than 34 participants for entrepreneurs. The labor mobility has given 17,000 regular employment opportunities for Salvadorans abroad. And under the protocol of attention to returned women, we guarantee that migration is not a stigma, but rather an opportunity for reinvestment and return, transforming life. And El Salvador Max gives women who return a path that includes housing, feminine capital, and health. And in addition to that, there is the project of economic empowerment for women in municipalities that are prioritized in our country that looks at heads of home economic autonomy, technical assistance, links to markets, and access to capital. In the most vulnerable sectors, rural programs move ahead, and this guarantees food security and leadership of rural women and indigenous women's participation. It's not enough to invite women to participate, rather the efforts of states and organizations have to be there to remove the obstacles that historically have been there. Mr. Chairman, the Day of Women in the Americas also marks the anniversary of SIM, the first intergovernmental organization to recognize human rights of women. And this is why we're here, to recognize their work and to go along with member states as they acknowledge this. So with a view to the words from Mrs. Velasquez, Algo Biosciences founder, we would like to also thank her for the Day of Women in Sciences, proving that women in science has a multiplier effect and uses them as points of reference for younger women who are interested in technology, biology, engineering, and other fields, showing that science needs talent from everybody. Then finally, we pay tribute to all women in the American continent with their struggles and contributions, move ahead, recognizing their full-fledged rights and participation in all the different spheres of society without discrimination. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Ecuador has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We would like to also echo the comments of gratitude for convening this meeting, as well as for the presentation of the panelists, and particularly to underscore the need that this dialogue that we have here today can attract good practices and experiences that our countries have and replicate them whenever possible. This commemoration should be a call to pay attention, particularly in terms of what we're observing, not only in terms of civil and political rights, but also, above all, with regards to economic rights for women. This is a sine qua non for the development of our societies. According to the most recent estimates from the Global Report on Gender Gap of the World Economic Forum, the world would need 123 years to fill the economic gap. More specifically, in the countries in the Americas, 57 years. Most of us probably will not even be here. Now, we do have an Inter-American Council for Integral Development, and par excellence, this is a political forum for a discussion of development of all peoples. And this, then, is a challenge for development. My delegate would like to invite all of us to include an agenda that is not only, or moves from being a commemoration to activity. There are still structural key activities and gaps and real applications in doing away with them. Concentration of women in lower remunerated sectors are still there, and inequalities are there in care systems. These have to be broken, and they often have to leave their work to assume these roles. The current economic situation, automation, and crises affect disproportionately all women, particularly in low-income and medium-income countries. Now, in our country, we have spearheaded productive activities, supporting vulnerable sectors and strengthening the economic local fabric through programs of social assistance and technological support. This benefits hundreds of women and making women the priority, who represent a substantial part of rural employment and entrepreneurship. At the beginning of 2026, the government of Mr. Novoa announced a new line of credit for entrepreneurs channeled through banks that allow women between 25 to 60 years to get loans of 50 to many hundreds of dollars without any requirements for guarantees. These kinds of programs are part of a host of different measures that complement other instruments that support women's entrepreneurship and financial inclusion, with a view to spearhead economic autonomy of women and promote a reboot of local economy from a gender standpoint. Through Violet Credit, more than 90,000 entrepreneurs have access financing with about $290 million, which is credit that they have, according to the official data in Ecuador. So along that line, then, the Republic of Ecuador feels this urgent to tie up the loose ends, and we would like to ask members to strengthen feminine entrepreneurship, financial inclusion, labor training, and digital transformation, or transition, I should say, in the youth and rural areas. We also have to deepen regional cooperation and share experience through the Inter-American Commission on Women and the mechanisms that we have at our fingertips within the framework of the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development. We have the tools, we have public policies, and enough evidence to move towards equality. What we have is knowledge. We need the will, and goal one is still centuries away. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ecuador. Guatemala has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Guatemala truly appreciates inclusion of this item on the agenda to commemorate Women's Day in the Americas, as well as the comments from the sterling participants reaffirming our commitment to substantive equality and full-fledged economic rights for all women as an indispensable component for sustainable development and democracy in our nations. We recognize the historical leadership of the Inter-American Commission of Women, a key organ for the protection of rights of women in the hemisphere. Their work has been crucial to promote economic autonomy as a strategic pillar in the American agenda to strengthen the institutional capacities of member states. Guatemala values these spaces for dialogue, technical cooperation, and exchange of best practices that the Commission has promoted over the course of years. For my delegation, economic empowerment of women, in addition to a social aspiration, is a commitment linked directly to inclusive growth, reduction of poverty, and democracy. In the last few years, we have made progress in strengthening the legal institutional framework to promote equal opportunity between women and men in the process of national planning and in crafting public policies which are geared toward productive development. Our country has spearheaded programs geared toward promoting female entrepreneurship, especially in the rural areas and with indigenous populations. Recognizing the contribution of women for local economies. We have strengthened initiative on access to credit, technical training, and financial education for women who are micro entrepreneurs. We have had their gradual inclusion in more competitive markets. Guatemala also has made progress in including a lens of equality in the budget, trying to guarantee public resources that will contribute effectively to reduce structural inequalities. In addition to that, we have raised the awareness of co-responsibility when it comes to care, understanding that the overburden of unremunerated work continues to be one of the main barriers for full-fledged participation and economic participation of women. We are aware that the challenges that are still there means that we have to deepen our efforts and to strengthen regional cooperation in the OAS, working in a coordinated way with the Inter-American Commission of Women and with all these sectors that are committed to equality. Mr. Chairman, to invest in economic rights of women is to invest in integral development of all societies. When women have productive resources, land, credit, technology, and education, they lead to positive impacts that go over and above the individual sphere and lead to greater levels of well-being, stability, and collective prosperity. In this commemoration of the Day for Women of the Americas, Guatemala renews its commitment to continue to promote public policies that are inclusive, sustainable, and transformative, truly believing that full-fledged development of the hemisphere will only be possible when all women can exercise our economic rights in equal conditions with dignity. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Guatemala. Guyana has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to join in thanking our presenters for their very informative contributions to this topic. Today, we are reminded that democracy and development are inseparable from women's rights. And we honor the work of all those who have fought over the years to ensure full civil and political rights for women across the Americas. We particularly salute and recognize the efforts of the Inter-American Commission on Women to promote the guarantee and protection of women's rights. Chair, advancing women's economic rights is not only a matter of justice, it is imperative to sustainable development. Across the Americas, women continue to bear the disproportionate burden of unpaid care work. They face barriers to formal employment and encounter persistent wage gaps. Addressing these and other concerns require partnerships between governments, private sector, and civil society to inform public policy, transform norms, and create inclusive markets. The government of Guyana has invested significantly in women's empowerment, with policies and initiatives aimed at increasing women's participation in agriculture, business, education, the oil and gas, and other sectors. In 2021, the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security launched the Women's Innovation and Investment Network Program, a flagship initiative providing skills and business training and offering competitive startup grants to launch or expand enterprises. Guyana has also made notable strides in gender parity in education and leadership roles, expanding childcare support to enable women's full participation in the workforce and deepening the social protections for women. In an effort to drive innovation and entrepreneurship, including women-led innovation, the government of Guyana will launch the Guyana Development Bank in April 2026 to provide zero-interest, collateral-free loans. The bank will be capitalized with at least $200 million US and offer significant opportunities to eliminate financial barriers for small and medium-sized enterprises. Chair, these efforts underscore Guyana's commitment to fostering inclusive development, where women's economic rights are part of our national development strategy, and we will continue to work with our regional partners to advocate for women's rights and empowerment across this hemisphere. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. St. Vincent and Grenadines. St. Vincent and Grenadines has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Assistant Secretary General, distinguished permanent representatives and alternates, distinguished permanent observers, staff of the Secretariat, presenters. The delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expresses gratitude to the permanent missions for requesting the inclusion of this item on today's agenda to commemorate the Day of the Women of the Americas, highlighting women's economic rights as a key to development, and congratulates the SIM on its 98th anniversary. This delegation also thanks the presenters for their impactful perspectives to support this initiative. Chair, a country's development cannot be fully realized without the inclusion of women in its economic plan and development policies. As women and girls are some of the most vulnerable members of any society, their empowerment should not be an afterthought, nor should the celebration of their achievements be merely performative. The work done in this region by the SIM, championing women's rights based on the principles of indivisibility, universality, and progressiveness, has been critical in promoting and advancing women's economic rights. In spite of progress made to date, the fight for women's economic rights in Latin America and the Caribbean still faces significant challenges. For example, data indicate that there is, on average, a 16.2% gender wage gap. The adoption of the Declaration of Lima on Equality and Autonomy in the Exercise of Women's Economic Rights in 2016 affirms that women's economic autonomy is essential for sustainable development, democracy, and equality in the Americas. The calls for structural reform to eliminate barriers that hinder women's economic empowerment must reverberate through these halls and throughout this hemisphere if we are to truly achieve the development we desire. Chair, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is committed to providing programs and policies for training, financial support, and resources for women to engage in business and leadership roles, thus eliminating structural and systemic barriers to their economic empowerment. To this end, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Taiwan Technical Mission, under the Women's Empowerment Initiative, graduated 160 women over a 6-week period from programs aimed at equipping them with adequate skills to gain employment or become entrepreneurs themselves in the fields of beauty therapy, computer literacy, and housekeeping. Additionally, through the Economically Empowered Women for Equitable and Resilient Societies Women's Economic Empowerment Project by the OAS Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, in collaboration with the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Center for Enterprise Development, women-owned businesses benefited from aid to promote their participation in the digital economy as a means of breaching the digital divide. In closing, Chair, my delegation recognizes that the advantages of expanding and amplifying women's economic rights are multifaceted and include increased GDP, enhanced household well-being, and a more robust and sustainable economy for all. St. Vincent and the Grenadines believes that, through targeted interventions, The countries in this hemisphere can be leaders in this important cause. We therefore express our commitment to advancing women's economic rights as a key to development. Chair, at this juncture, my delegation places on record its pride in Ms. Miriam Roach, Principal Expert to the Committee of Experts of the MASEC-V, on being elected as the committee's president. This is a landmark achievement, as Vincentian Ms. Roach is the first CARICOM national to be elected as president. We also express our gratitude to the SEVI for the trust and confidence reposed in Ms. Roach. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and lots of success as you move ahead. Dominican Republic has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. With the permission of the delegation of Chile, on behalf of the government that I represent, I would like to congratulate the Inter-American Commission of Women in celebrating their 98th year in favor of women's rights. Their legacy has been very decisive in our region. SIM, this was the first specialized organization exclusively on these issues and continues to be a point of reference for the hemisphere and other regions in the world. I would also like to recognize the work of the Executive Secretary, Alejandra Mora Mora, and her team, as well as that of all women who for almost a century have spearheaded advances and progress that protect us and broaden these fora. Today, we underscore the importance of economic rights of women as the key event and need for development. In this context, then, the Dominican Republic reaffirms that these rights are indispensable so that we have the do lay waste with the inequalities, socioeconomic inequality and poverty, sexual division of labor, concentration of power, and cultural patriarchal standards. To guarantee economic rights of women is indispensable for sustainable development, economic resilience, and consolidation of democracy in our societies. Aware that the economy is fundamental. In my country, we have spearheaded programs that promote women's entrepreneurship and financial inclusion, facilitating access to credit, technical training, and work and training for SMEs headed up by women. Amongst the most significant progress made, we have implementation of a model for classification of public expenditures based on equality, which has allowed us to gear resources in a more efficient way towards equality policies. We have incorporated the lens of care in the public arena so that unremunerated burden of work limits economic autonomy of women. We move towards policies that promote co-responsibility between the state, the private sector, and families. And we have developed a national policies for care to promote economic inclusion. In this framework, then, we have created the program of communities of care, cooperatives, and SMEs, which are led by women. These are the principal people responsible for the work of unremunerated work when it comes to care. So once again, let me quote Gloria Reyes, Minister of Women, who has pointed out that in the Dominican Republic, we believe that care is a right and a strategic pillar for sustainable development. Our strategy of communities of care is not just a program, it's a way of socially reorganizing care from the entire territory as it trickles down to the communities. Mr. Chairman, the Dominican Republic reaffirms its commitment to multilateralism to make progress and to have results that strengthen economic autonomy of women, which, as expressed in previous comments made, are essential for democracy and more just societies. Development will only be sustainable if it is inclusive and guarantees for women the full-fledged exercise of their economic rights on an equal footing. Thank you very much.
Tiene el uso de la palabra.
Thank you, Ambassador. St. Kitts and Nevis has the floor. Thank you, and I want to congratulate Secretary Mora, and I congratulate SIM. I'd like to congratulate all women whose efforts are sustaining our heavens and earth.
and in my capacity as coordinator of the CARICOM caucus, as the Council commemorates the Day of the Women of the Americas under the theme, Women's Economic Rights as a Key to Development. We align ourselves with the powerful message that sustainable development, democratic resilience, and social justice across our hemisphere depend fundamentally on the full realization of women's rights, including their economic rights. St. Kitts and Nevis has sought to anchor its development trajectory in the Inter-American and international human rights framework, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, CEDAW, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Our National Gender Equality Policy and Action Plan 2022 to 2027 affirms women's economic autonomy as both a human right and a development imperative. Through strengthened domestic social protection systems, such as the Homegrown LIFT program and complementary initiatives such as MEND and RISE, we have prioritized income security, poverty reduction, and pathways to decent work, particularly for female-headed households and women facing structural vulnerability. We have also placed deliberate emphasis on women's entrepreneurship, skills training, and access to markets, since the strong participation of women in micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise initiatives in our federation demonstrates that when barriers are reduced and support is intentional, women lead not only in their households, but in national economic transformation. Chair, from a CARICOM perspective, advancing women's economic rights reflects the lived realities of Caribbean societies. Women constitute a significant share of the workforce, dominate key sectors such as services, tourism, education, and healthcare, and increasingly lead in micro and small enterprise development. Yet persistent gender wage gaps, occupational segregation, limited access to capital, disproportionate unpaid care burdens, and vulnerability to economic shocks continue to restrict their full economic participation. These challenges are compounded by the Caribbean's structural vulnerabilities, climate change, natural disasters, high debt burdens, and exposure to external shocks, which disproportionately affect women, particularly those in informal or precarious employment. Disruptions to tourism and agriculture, rising unpaid care responsibilities, and heightened poverty among female-headed households underscore that women's economic rights are inseparable from climate resilience, social protection, and sustainable economic diversification. While CARICOM states have advanced legislative reform and gender mainstreaming, economic justice for women requires sustained action, including strengthened legal protections against discrimination, expanded access to affordable childcare, greater financial inclusion, and credit for women entrepreneurs, investment in digital literacy and participation, gender-responsive budgeting and improved data systems, and intensified regional efforts to address gender-based violence as a barrier to economic autonomy. CARICOM reaffirms its commitment to collective action within the OAS framework. The Inter-American Commission of Women remains an essential partner in evidence-based policymaking, reform, and capacity building, and we welcome continued technical cooperation and South-South collaboration tailored to Caribbean realities. The Caribbean experience confirms that women's economic rights are central to macroeconomic stability, poverty reduction, food security, climate resilience, and democratic governance. As we mark the Day of the Women of the Americas, CARICOM calls for renewed hemispheric solidarity to close remaining gender gaps, mobilize resources for gender-responsive recovery and resilience, ensure inclusive green and digital transitions, and uphold our commitments under the Inter-American human rights system. St. Kitts and Nevis, with the CARICOM caucus, remains steadfast in advancing this shared agenda. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. United States has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Each year, on this day, we mark the Day of the Women of the Americas, a recognition that was established in 1982 by the OAS General Assembly. The date commemorates the founding of the Inter-American Commission on Women in 1928, an initiative led by the United States which played a central role in its creation. The CIM was the first intergovernmental body established to advocate for women's political and civil rights. For nearly a century, the CIM has worked to advance women's roles in political, economic, and social spheres. The United States strongly supports protecting women and girls, defending their human rights, and promoting their empowerment, including in the Americas. Unfortunately, high rates of violence against women and girls, including that perpetrated by gangs, is a significant and overlooked cause of migration, which directly impacts our regional security and the public safety of our countries. Migration also commonly exposes women and girls to exploitation, trafficking in persons, forced labor, and other forms of violence along the way. The safety of women and girls must be central to solutions to curb illegal immigration and secure our borders. In 2017, President Trump signed the Women, Peace, and Security Act, the first comprehensive law in the world on this issue. This historic legislation helps guide our efforts to prevent and resolve conflicts that threaten the U.S. national security, which cannot be achieved without the safety and participation of women and girls. Discrimination and limited access to economic opportunities also commonly influence the decision of women and their families to migrate. In 2019, President Trump established the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative, the first whole-of-government effort to advance global women's economic empowerment. The initiative has reached over 12 million women worldwide since its establishment, including here in the Americas. The United States strongly supports protecting women and girls, defending their human rights, and promoting their empowerment. Thank you, Chair.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you so much, United States. Bahamas has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Bahamas joins member states in commemorating the Day of Women of the Americas, celebrated every February 18th, and commemorating the anniversary of the creation of the Inter-American Commission of Women in 1928. We note the importance of this year's theme, Women's Economic Rights, as a key to development. Chair, it is clear that when women enjoy full economic rights, equal access to work, credit, land, technology, and leadership, our societies prosper. When they do not, development stalls, inequality widens, and democracy is weakened. For the Bahamas, women's economic empowerment is not merely a social objective, it is an economic imperative. Women comprise a significant share of our labor force, dominate critical economic sectors such as tourism, financial services, and public administration, and lead micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises that sustain our family islands and urban centers alike. The Bahamas has taken deliberate steps to advance women's economic rights through policy reform, entrepreneurship support, financial literacy initiatives, and expanded access to financing mechanisms for women-owned businesses. The OAS provided valuable technical assistance to develop the Bahamas' Small Business Development Center, SBDC Access Accelerator, which launched in September 2018. The SBDC has proven to be a successful support mechanism for Bahamian entrepreneurs. Minister Miles Larota of the Ministry of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting has confirmed the government's dedication to supporting entrepreneurs with a special focus on empowering women. In 2024, the SBDC awarded women entrepreneurs grant funding as a part of the SBDC Women Entrepreneur Initiative, which has awarded more than $600,000 to 83 female entrepreneurs. Since its inception, the SBDC has supported almost 1,300 women-owned businesses with a total of $30.4 million. At the end of 2025, the SBDC launched its third cohort of the Women Entrepreneurs Initiative as a holistic entrepreneurial support focused on training, mentorship, networking, funding, and leadership. The Bahamas recognizes that women are starting businesses at rates equal to or faster than men, and that their work more likely prioritizes social impact and community. The SBDC has provided an opportunity for women to access capital, feel respected as business owners, and actualize their business goals. At the end of 2024, the Ministry of Tourism of the Bahamas partnered with the Black Innovation Alliance, a coalition of organizations supporting 300,000 entrepreneurs and innovators, to launch its Bahamas Women in Tech series to empower Bahamian women entrepreneurs in the tourism sector through technology, education, and skill development. The initiative has impacted over 1,000 women entrepreneurs in hospitality and tourism and has offered workshops, training sessions, and dedicated digital platform to enhance competitiveness in the global tourism market. Tourism remains the Bahamas' leading industry, and programs such as these allow the backbone of the industry to develop in their fields and meet the evolving industry demands. As I conclude, Chair, my delegation wishes to commend the continued work of the Inter-American Commission of Women towards advancing legal standards, policy dialogue, and empowering women. The Bahamas notes the work of the Secretariat in collaboration with the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, CAF, to launch the Model Law on Financial Inclusion of Women to promote regulatory and legislative changes that address the barriers that women face in accessing financial services. The Bahamas looks forward to the presentation of the instrument of model law, which is scheduled to take place in the first half of this year. Chair, the future prosperity of our hemisphere depends on the full and equal participation of women in economic life. We look forward to supporting and continuing to cooperate with endeavors by the OAS and its dependencies which focus on the advancement of the economic rights of women. Thank you.
Usted, muchas gracias.
Thank you so very much. Mexico, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Mexico thanks you for including the commemoration of the Day of Women of the Americas in our agenda today and reiterates the support for the declaration read by Chile as well as other delegations. We want to take this opportunity to highlight two indispensable points which we believe are the basis for protecting the economic rights of women in all their diversity. First of all, the principle of equality and non-discrimination recognized by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights as a principle of international law by pointing out that states cannot subordinate or condition equality before the law or non-discrimination based on the objectives of their public policy, whatever they may be. The court has also interpreted the idea of equality and that it stems from the nature of human beings, and it is essential for human dignity. And so any situation which believes that a specific group is superior to others and leads to privileges, or may consider another group inferior, which leads to discrimination, this is unacceptable. And so we have diverse people who may be intersex, the biological diversity, whatever it may be, it should not be a hindrance to full exercise of economic, cultural, social, or other rights. Inequality begins when a feature, reproductive characteristic leads to social constructions. And so these characteristics have led to historical constructs, considering some features male or female. And so this can reveal inequality and discrimination, which undermines the dignity of millions of people. Mexico supports equality and non-discrimination, as well as the principles of indivisibility of rights, interdependence of rights, and progressivity of human rights, and recognizes that we cannot comply with our obligations with respect to human rights without a gender perspective. Gender inequality exists. It has been proven, and it gets worse when it crosses with racism, classism, xenophobic tendencies, or others. So we will continue to promote and respect an intersectoral approach and an intercultural approach in our public policies with respect to the economic rights of women, which is the matter at hand. We believe it is urgent to overcome this and to go towards systems that redistribute the care work that exists as provided for in the Tlatelolco commitment, as pointed out by the representative of Chile. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. St. Lucia has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair St. Lucia joins in commemorating the Day of Women of the Americas. We express our gratitude to the presenters, and we salute the Inter-American Commission of Women for its leadership in this space. The theme, Women's Economic Rights as a Key to Development, is one that is reflected in St. Lucia's national policy direction and in the fiscal and legislative choices we have made in recent years. In his 2025-2026 budget address, Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, placed people at the center of St. Lucia's development. That philosophy is inseparable from women's economic rights. We believe firmly that when women thrive, families are strengthened, communities become more resilient, and economies grow in a manner that is inclusive and sustainable. Our government has expanded universal health coverage to include maternal and child health services, cervical cancer screening, and other critical interventions. Access to health services is an economic issue. A woman who can secure timely care for herself and her children is better positioned to participate in the labor force, to pursue education, and to invest in her enterprise. We have also invested deliberately in education and skills development. Through the Caribbean Digital Transformation Agenda and national programs to strengthen digital capacity, we are equipping women and girls to participate fully in emerging sectors such as software development, data analytics, and cybersecurity. Women's economic rights in the 21st century must include access to technology, capital, and innovation ecosystems. Our Youth Economy Agency has distributed grants and initiated loan facilities to empower young entrepreneurs. Many of these beneficiaries are young women whose creativity and resilience are reshaping our economic landscape. Complementing this, the MSME loan and grant facility devoted to those over 35 years of age has supported many small and medium enterprises with financing for equipment, certification, and modernization. Women-owned enterprises stand at the forefront of this transformation. We are also advancing legislative reforms that expand access to credit through non-traditional collateral and modern insolvency frameworks. These measures directly address structural barriers that have historically limited women's access to finance and asset accumulation. Importantly, St. Lucia recognizes that women's economic autonomy cannot be achieved without confronting the care economy. The hemispheric commitments referenced in the concept note for this meeting, including the Inter-American Model Law on Care, resonate strongly with our national focus on social protection, pension reform, and support for the elderly. By increasing minimum pensions and strengthening community-based initiatives, we reduce the invisible and unpaid care burdens that fall disproportionately on women. Chair, St. Lucia and many other small island developing states confront layered vulnerabilities. Climate change, global economic volatility, and supply chain disruptions threaten hard-won gains. Women, particularly those in rural and coastal communities, are often the first to feel these shocks and the last to recover. Ensuring that the economic rights Ensuring the economic rights is therefore central to national resilience and foundational to development. It is about fair access to land, finance, markets, digital tools, and decent work. It is about closing wage gaps and recognizing the economic value of care. It is about enabling women not merely to survive, but to build wealth and pass opportunity from one generation to the next. As we commemorate Day of Women of the Americas, St. Lucia reaffirms its commitment to policies that translate hemispheric commitments into measurable outcomes. We stand ready to continue collaborating with the SIM and with fellow member states to advance a regional agenda that secures equality, autonomy, and prosperity for all women and girls. Thank you, Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you, St. Lucia. I offer the floor to Honduras. Thank you very much, Chair. The permanent mission of Honduras would like to join to commemorate the Day of Women of the Americas and expresses its gratitude to the sponsors who included this point on our agenda, and we thank our presenters. For Honduras, this date is very important because it is the day the SIM was created, and this reaffirms our commitment of the hemisphere to women's human rights. We recognize the leadership of the Inter-American Commission of Women as a technical point of reference with respect to Inter-American standards as far as gender equality is concerned. We recognize the progress made, but there are structural gaps that need to be addressed. We share the hemispheric vision that economic rights of women are a strategic pillar for sustainable development. Their full involvement in the economy strengthens our societies, contributes to reducing poverty, and upholds democracy. In this commemoration, we reaffirm our commitment to continue to work on effective public policies with respect to hemispheric cooperation and to implement the inter-American instruments that we have built together. Thank you very much, Chair. I thank the delegation of Honduras, and Jamaica has the floor.
Very much, Mr. Chair, Assistant Secretary General, Ambassador Laura Hill, permanent representatives, alternates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The delegation of Jamaica extends sincere appreciation and truly honored that this important commemoration of women in the Americas has been placed on today's agenda. We also express our deep appreciation to the Inter-American Commission for Women for its steadfast commitment to advancing the rights and empowerment of women and the fight against violence against women across our hemisphere. Thanks also to Executive Secretary Maura Mora and all the presenters for their very insightful presentations. It is our hope that today's engagement will serve as a stark reminder that we must honor the remarkable social, economic, and cultural contributions that women in the Americas continue to make to our societies through their work and unwavering dedication and tenacity. Women throughout the Americas play an indispensable role in shaping our societies. They contribute significantly to the stability of families, environmental sustainability, and the food security of our region. Notwithstanding these contributions, a large percentage of women, particularly those in rural communities, continue to face challenges in accessing land ownership and essential amenities such as clean running water, reliable infrastructure, electricity, transportation, adequate health care, and meaningful economic opportunities. Additionally, the increased vulnerability of these communities to climate-related events further compounds these challenges. Even as we celebrate the invaluable role of that women play, we cannot overlook the troubling persistence of violence against women and girls globally. It is essential to note that approximately 736 million women have experienced physical and/or sexual violence from intimate partners, non-partners, or both at least once in their lifetime. This reality demands sustained collective action. In this regard, the government of Jamaica has undertaken several legislative and policy initiatives to advance gender equality and to protect women and girls. These include the National Policy for Gender Equality, which seeks to mainstream gender considerations across ministry, departments, and agencies. The Sexual Harassment and Protection and Prevention Act of 2021, the Domestic Violence Amendment Act 2023, and the National Strategic Action Plan to eliminate gender-based violence. Additionally, Jamaica has implemented policies to ensure the elimination of 30%, to ensure the minimum representation of 30% of men and women in public boards. Further, targeted programs have been introduced to support teenage mothers, ensuring that they are able to continue their education across opportunities for economic empowerment and fully participate in national development. At the same time, Jamaica recognizes the importance of ensuring that men and boys are engaged as partners in advancing gender equality, as inclusive development requires the participation of all members of society. Mr. Chair, as we commemorate Women in the Americas, it is fitting to highlight distinguished women across our region whose leadership and advocacy have inspired generations. We proudly recognize one of our national heroes, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica, whose courage and strategic brilliance symbolize resistance, freedom, and leadership. The Americas have also benefited from the global human rights advocacy of Rigoberta Menchú, whose work has amplified the voices of indigenous peoples and women. The distinguished leadership of Michelle Bachelet has advanced democratic governance, social inclusion, and international human rights. In the Caribbean, Jamaica, whose tenure demonstrated resilience, service, and commitment to national development. Likewise, the rise of women in all spheres in the Caribbean and in the Americas continues to inspire women and girls to pursue leadership in private and public service. Mr. Chair, my delegation calls upon all relevant stakeholders to increase investment in women across the Americas, including access to digital tools, adequate training, antenatal care, access to health care, especially non-communicable diseases such as cancers, diabetes, and hypertension. In closing, I leave you with these words. The true wealth of a community is measured by how carefully it listens to its women and how sincerely it values their vision. Empowering women empowers us all. Mr. Chair, I thank you.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you very much. Paraguay has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of Paraguay surely appreciates the delegations who have spearheaded the inclusion of this very important commemoration on the agenda today. We express our recognition of the panelists for their very sterling presentations that have led us to collective reflection on the economic rights of women as an essential condition for development in the Americas. To promote and guarantee economic rights of women is a priority of Paraguay, based on the understanding that their full-fledged realization not only corrects historical inequalities, but also acts as one of the driving forces for growth and inclusive development, reduction of poverty, and consolidation of democracy. Economic equality between men and women is not just an legal aspiration. It's a structural basis for more fair, just, resilient, and prosperous societies. Paraguay has been promoting many different activities geared towards integrating the principles of equality, non-discrimination, and non-violence in all policies. The Ministry of Women in this regard, as a guiding light in this area, promotes incorporation of these principles in plans, programs, and projects in municipalities as well as in states. And as such, our country has made progress in the consolidation of the National Policy of Care 2025 to 2030, recognizing that the unequal distribution of care work is one of the main factors that limits the economic autonomy of women. This strategic instrument allows us to move towards a model of more fair CARE, which is organized Overcoming Unequal Practices, in which it is recognized that care is a right or a shared responsibility between the state, families, communities, and the private sector. These actions are undergirded by the Constitution and international and regional commitments that have been taken on by Paraguay. The gap in opportunity between men and women is one of the main obstacles for development, and that is why it's crucial to strengthen the legal frameworks, promote budgets, very specific budgets, strengthen social protection systems, and promote participation of the private sector, academia, and other strategic stakeholders in the promotion of inclusive policies and those that have salary equity in mind. We reaffirm our position to continue to actively cooperate with the OAS and with the Inter-American Commission of Women to advance in the use of good practices, access to technical cooperation, and strengthening of institutional capacities when it comes to economic and rights and financing is a very important issue. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Permanent observers now have the floor. Let's begin with France. France has the floor.
Thank you, Chair, Assistant Secretary General. Colleagues, France would like to join in this commemoration of Women's in the Americas. It allows us to recall our commitment to gender equality and against all discrimination against women. In this House of the Americas, I reaffirm our firm defense of women throughout the world. And I would like to welcome the pioneer role of women in Latin America and the Caribbean to look for greater protection of women's rights. These heroines have advanced the cause of women here and beyond this region. France was one of the first countries to adopt a feminist diplomatic stance that puts women at the center. And in October 2025, several countries in the region and the Secretary General were at the conference and supported the declaration that was supported by 31 countries to not go back on women's rights. The feminist policy is a political commitment to fight against violence wreaked on women and girls throughout the world. France believes that this must be integrated to reduce inequalities in sustainable development, in security, defense, and fundamental rights, and in all economic matters. We are clear. Economic rights of women are an essential condition for sustainable development, social stability, and collective prosperity. Women work, innovate, sustain their communities, but they face persistent inequalities, limited access to decision-making, to financing, to employment. This stops the potential of our economies writ large. When women have access to education, economic opportunities, finance, we have more growth. Poverty goes down. Society becomes more resilient. Here at the OAS, France is committed to the CIM, which is a pillar of the inter-American system and a point of reference for women in the hemisphere. They are celebrating 89 years today. And so 18 February, the French law allowed our women to register at the university without the permission of their husbands. We want to help CIM to help women become emancipated politically in all levels in the Americas. And so we have been supporting a model law to have economic independence of women. This will be a tool to help women become economically more independent. The strengthening of the legal framework around the economic rights of women will help fight against social and structural obstacles. This is fundamental to ensure their independence. Investing in women's economic rights is to choose a more inclusive, fair, and more sustainable development for all. Thank you very much.
Gracias, embajadora.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Spain has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Assistant Secretary General. It's important to bring to this permanent council of the Organization of American States, the highest forum for discussions, the commemoration of the Day of Women in the Americas, because those who attack democracy also attack rights of women, feminism, and the Day of Equality, as well as citizenship. To claim equality and feminism is also to defend democracy. So in this vein, we truly appreciate the chair of the Permanent Council for including this item on the agenda, as well as the promotion and initiatives of Chile, Brazil, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, Mexico, Panama, Dominican Republic, and Uruguay. Spain decidedly supports the Inter-American Commission of Women of the OAS, and it's almost about 100 years old. The Inter-American system created in 1928. It's the first intergovernmental organization of the entire world established to guarantee the recognition of civil and political rights of women. It was a pioneering community. We move towards understanding that SIM and the work in Peru has the support of funds for the Spanish cooperation organ. These courses for training are relevant with political, institutional, and financial support from Spain behind the work on democracy, and particularly crafting the Inter-American Model Law for parity, as well as the development of other reports and studies that will take place in this issue, which is now underway. The feminist policy today is one of the priority areas of international plans for our country, recognized in our strategy for activities in 2025-2028. This is riddled through all of the activities Spain undertakes, from cooperation, peace, and development of security or climate. So in this regard, I should like to underscore some of the activities undertaken by Spain, such as taking in women who have been oppressed by the Taliban, and with platforms of political dialogue, as well as other activities, or offering services through the network of embassies and missions for those women who have experienced violence abroad. Similarly, through coordination of our ambassador and special mission for foreign feminist policies, Spain has the first strategy for cooperation for women, which consolidates our commitment to equality also within the framework of international cooperation for development. And further to that, our country will soon have a new national plan for action on women, peace, and security, which will reinforce institutional coordination and participation of civil society. And in addition to that, I should like to underscore that Madrid will be the host of the 5th Conference of Foreign Feminist Policies this year, 2026, to make progress to consolidate a feminist global transformative inclusive policy, which is based on gender equality and rights of women and global justice. Let me conclude with a reflection. Luckily, the OAS, for the very first time in the history since its creation, has a woman, Laura Gil, as Assistant Secretary General. But if we look at the next line of things, multilaterally, Spain, given its feminist foreign policy, defends that the moment has arrived for the United Nations to have a woman from Latin America as Secretary General, because participation of women and parity are issues that should be reflected in international organizations where this is not yet the case. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Much success in the 5th conference that you mentioned. Holy See has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This delegation of the Holy See would like to also congratulate everybody for the International Day of Women of the Americas, and therefore congratulations to all women present and those in the Americas. To reflect today on the economic rights of women as a key for development, I'd like to underscore an essential principle in the social fabric of the church. Dignity of each human being is the bedrock of all authentic social action and economic initiatives. Pope Leon XIV has said to continue to denounce dictatorships of an economy that while some gain and expand exponentially, the majorities are still far from well-being of this other minority. And that is why dignity of each human being should be respected. And the situation of the hemisphere in which many people live, particularly women who have been denied these things, should be looked at as part of our general conscience. And the Holy See will continue to defend rights of women, including their economic rights, their labor rights, their social rights. This is not just a question of justice, but an imperative for integral development for the society across the board. We cannot just speak about economic growth. We have to promote across the board things for every person, their dignity and their fundamental rights. This includes guaranteeing that women can participate fully in the economic, labor, life, social life of their communities without any discrimination nor any unfair obstacles. The economic right of women is key, not only for the well-being of themselves, but also for the prosperity of their families, their communities, and other activities. For women to have equitable access to economic resources, and decent employment, education, capital, and business opportunities. With that, you have broadening of sustainable development for everyone. The Holy See reaffirms that the dignity of all women should be fully recognized and defended in all cultures. This is a clarion call to end discrimination and exclusion that many women still have to deal with. There cannot be development or social justice where the economic role of women is restricted or undermined. May this anniversary also be for the Americas an opportunity to renew commitments to strengthen alliances and to deepen policies that guarantee recognition of economic rights for all women, because this will make the world more humane and more fair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much that we ended on a very important point on the agenda of this chair, on behalf of which we should like to thank everyone for all of the very important presentations and the very important comments made during this commemoration. Of course, we would avail ourselves of the moment to congratulate once again the Inter-American Commission of Women on its 98th anniversary, recognizing its history as the first intergovernmental body dedicated to women's rights in the Americas, and its role as the main hemispheric forum for dialogue, policymaking, and the promotion of gender equality and women's human rights. I should also like to expressly recognize the declaration crafted by the 11 countries that asked for convening this very important meeting for this point of great importance. I think it's really a very good move that has been initiated, and perhaps we can have more days to devote to this, and that's why it's a priority. Given that declaration and through the delegation of Chile that we recognize, this council has taken due note of the reflection presented which contribute to strengthening our regional commitment to the promotion of women's rights and gender equality. I truly believed, and I increasingly am convinced, as the President Claudia Chambon says, it's Women's Day. It has arrived. The next item on the agenda is the election of a member of the commission of this Leo S. Pan American Fund. As a next item on the agenda and in response to the request made by the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Permanent Council is responsible for the election of a member of the Commission of the Pan American Fund, Leo S. Rowe, in accordance with the provisions of Article 3 and 4 of the statutes. In this regard, then, I should like to give the floor to delegations wishing to submit nominations. Chile has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As the delegation in charge of the group of 10, we would like to propose re-election of the delegation of Ecuador as member of the Leo S. Pan American Fund. The delegation of Ecuador, as part of the group, we propose re-election, valuing their contribution through or for the committees. Thank you very much. Costa Rica. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Costa Rica, as member of the Commission of the Leo Fund, would like to express its support for re-election of Ecuador as a member of this very important commission. We recognize the commitment to strengthen this mechanism and their contribution to promote opportunities for education and professionals in our continent. We would like to note that experience and consistently will be done in the offering for the Pan American Fund. Thank you very much.
En nombre del Consejo.
On behalf of the Permanent Council, we would like to congratulate the Permanent Mission of Ecuador for their election or re-election as a member of the Leo Rowe Pan American Fund, and we wish you the best of success as you carry out your functions. Moving on, we would now like to consider this for the next item on CAP. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then Ecuador will have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
The delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines thanks you for including this item on the agenda of today's meeting of the Permanent Council. As chair of the Leo Rowe Fund Committee, on behalf of the committee, I express sincere gratitude to Ambassador Monica Palencia and the delegation of Ecuador for serving with diligence and full engagement on the committee and for offering to continue to serve. The Leo Rowe Fund Committee congratulates the delegation of Ecuador on its re-election to the committee and thanks Ambassador Palencia and her team for demonstrating their commitment to hemispheric development through their participation in the important work of the Leo Rowe Fund Committee, as we continue to honor and advance the benevolence and ideals of Dr. Leo S. Rowe, whose vision was to enhance the lives of the youth in the Americas through the successful pursuit of higher education. The gratitude of the committee is extended equally to Ambassador Pascual Duarte and the delegation of Chile, and to Ambassador Solano of Costa Rica for nominating and seconding the re-election of the delegation of Ecuador. We also thank the Permanent Council for its approval for Ecuador to continue to serve alongside the distinguished delegations of Costa Rica, the United States, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the representative of the Secretary General. Congratulations, Ecuador. Much obliged, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ecuador has the floor. Thank you very much. I'm going to be very brief. And we would like to express our thanks on behalf of the Group of 10, Costa Rica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as the entire Permanent Council, for having given us the trust and in renewing election to the Leo Rowe Committee. We take on this responsibility with a deep sense of commitment and believing that the work that we do in this space has a real impact in the life of people. The Leo Rowe Fund is not just a financial mechanism. It's a specific tool for solidarity in the Americas. For more than 7 decades, the program of educational programs and funds without interest have enriched the students in our hemisphere, giving them academic and professional opportunities that transform careers and strengthen the human capital of our societies. From this representation on the committee, the Republic of Ecuador has sought to actively participate in the fund, promoting greater visibility of the beneficiaries and also encouraging its work in our countries with a view so that more citizens can know about and take advantage of this excellent opportunities. Thus, we reaffirm our willingness to continue to work fruitfully, constructively with the other members of the committee and with the Secretary General to strengthen the fund. And this is also very important for integral development and strengthening it, as well as the work done in the Americas. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ecuador. Now, we have to move on to the next item. We will be considering the matters referred by the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs. And in this sense, then, I should like to consult the Permanent Council if we can approve the strategic plan of the national offices in the member states 2026-2030, contained in document CP CAP 4183/26. Rev 1, as well as the proposal for mandate management policy contained in document CP/CAP 4186/26, both agreed by the CAP in its session of last February 3rd. May it be so? It is so approved. Assistant Secretary General has the floor, who deals with this issue on the national offices in member states. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen alike. First and foremost, I should like to express my sincerest thanks to the Permanent Council for approving the strategic plan of the national offices in member states for 2026-2030. This national plan is a result of a process of dialogue and reflection. And I truly believe that this exercise we did for this plan is the path to follow. Here, we are supporting member states, and we sit down to listen, to go back, to craft things, to write, then we come back to listen. So these efforts were necessary for us to get to the point where there was an agreement. It worked, and we will continue to do this. Now, last month, at different times, proposals were put with the same purpose in mind, to strengthen the territorial presence of the organization. And we didn't strike a necessary consensus. And that is why the decision that you adopted had special importance and reflects the collective will to have a shared vision. Since I came on as Assistant Secretary General, I took on this responsibility as an institutional priority, truly believing that strengthening the territorial presence of the OAS is fundamental. It's crucial for implementation to effectively and efficiently implement the mandates of member states. I would like to very especially thank the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs for their guidance and for working alongside us, as well as delegations of member states who made substantial contributions and allowed us to build a strategy more than anything else. It's realistic, which is in keeping with the budget realities and focus on specific results. This plan reaffirms that the offices are an active part of the organization's strategy, not only as points of administrative presence, but rather also as platforms that have a diplomatic representation, technical diplomatic representation at the service of all of you. My office responsibly has assumed the commitment in this strategy and is focused on results, upholding permanent dialogue with delegations for the plan. This is the launching pad and is based on dialogue for implementation. We will continue to be in contact with all of you, and we hope to uphold this very fluid dialogue. Let me repeat: austerity, transparency, accountability. These are the pillars of the office that I'm honored to manage. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary General. And we have taken due note of the points you have made. Let us move on to the next item on the agenda, consideration of the CISC recommendation, Commission on Management of Inter-American Summits and Participation of Civil Society. For consideration of this point, I should like to consult the Permanent Council if it accepts the recommendation presented by the President or the Chair of the Committee on Management of Inter-American Summits and Participation of Civil Society in the activities of the OAS. And as a result, the registration of the 14 civil society organizations listed in document CP/CISC 125426. Likewise, then, I should like to instruct the Office of the Assistant Secretary General through the Office of Relations with Civil Society so that these organizations are duly registered in the Registry of Civil Society Organizations of the OAS. If there are no comments, it is so. Costa Rica has the floor. Well, we can actually move ahead. I have other comments elsewhere. Costa Rica has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I would like to avail myself of the moment to look at this point to thank all of the efforts that are being made to update the guidelines for participation of civil society organizations. And also, I would like to say that we reiterate our commitment with the Inter-American system, and we hope that it continues to be open, plural, and transparent. And at the same time, I would like to underscore that this process has many clear-cut mandates that come from the political bodies of this organization, such as the resolution of the General Assembly 3026 of 2024 and the course of action that was agreed in the Committee on Management of Summits in the Americas and Participation of Civil Society in the activities of the OAS last year. This is geared towards an update that takes into account the accumulated experience, institutional practices, and the very intergovernmental nature of the OAS. In this context, Costa Rica also wishes to express its support behind the implementation of the resolution CP/Res 229/2026, which we were honored to negotiate as chair of CAP the second half last year. This has functions that are linked to civil society and puts it in the area of action for the Assistant Secretary General in her work, including the Office of Relations with Civil Society. We consider that this decision contributes to greater institutional coherence and consistency by strengthening the connection with this permanent council and consolidating a more integrated approach for dialogue with all of the social stakeholders. And at the same time, with regards to development and the negotiations that are underway right now on the new guidelines, we feel that it's crucial that this process continue fully aligned with the mandates of member states. We've observed quite attentively that there are some proposals that could be or could redefine the scope of certain actors, especially excluding religious organizations. In our judgment, in our view, any update that takes place of these guidelines should avoid any general exclusions and should guarantee equitable treatment in keeping with the Charter of the OAS. Costa Rica will actively participate in this discussion, as I say, is underway right now. We will continue to broach this with respect for all of the positions that will crop up within the framework of CISC, particularly in a meeting that we have envisaged for tomorrow afternoon. We do this with the spirit of contributing to a well-balanced text, which is legally solid and truly inclusive. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
A usted.
I thank you, Ambassador. And now we will move on to the 10th item on the order of business, the consideration of a note from the Secretary General informing the Chair of the Permanent Council of a request for a classification review of the post of ombudsperson. Now, with respect to this classification review, I would like to offer the floor to those delegations who would like to make any comments or remarks on this matter. Canada, you have the floor.
Canada values the Office of the Ombudsperson as an important component of the organization's dispute resolution process. We recognize that the office is not currently resourced at a level that enables it to fully carry out its mandate in support of OAS personnel. The ombudsperson position should be appropriately classified and compensated. However, our delegation has not yet had the opportunity to examine this request in detail with the Secretariat or with other member states. Canada therefore respectfully recommends that this item be referred to the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs for further consideration in accordance with established procedures. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gracias, delegación.
Thank you, Canada. Colombia, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. My delegation supports the request made by Canada to have this note considered at the CAP. Thank you very much. And Chair, since I have the floor, I wanted to avail myself of this moment to actually congratulate everyone for adopting this strategic plan for the national offices in the member states. I think it was a constructive and participatory process. We were all involved, and this was an exercise that was very fruitful for now and for the future. So I wanted to point this out. Thank you very much, Colombia. And based on the interventions made by the delegations of Canada and Colombia, the chair proposes sending to the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs the note of the Secretary General, which is about the consideration of the classification review of the post of ombudsperson. This in keeping with revisions of Article 19, which grants the CAP the function of studying those matters which the Council sends to it related to programs, budget, administration, or financial aspects of the General Secretariat. And so I propose that we also send, and I be authorized to send any additional information to the CAP that the chair receives so that there can be a reconsideration of this classification review of the post of the ombudsperson. So that once the process is concluded, the CAP can apprise the Permanent Council by presenting recommendations that it believes relevant. If there are no objections, it is agreed. Item 11, consideration of the following Permanent Council meeting minutes. CP Acta 2427, regular meeting of May 3rd, 2023. 2430 of the special meeting of May 19, 2023. 2431, special meeting of May 24, 2023. 2432, special meeting of May 30th, 2023. 2573, regular meeting of December 10, 2025. 2574, special meeting of December 15, 2025. 2575, regular meeting of December 17th, 2025. Approved. We have concluded, finally, all the items on our order of business for this meeting. So I offer the floor to those delegations that would like to refer to other business. This is strictly informative matters, and the chair will call to order anyone who tries to mention a matter that is not informative. This is based on the rules of procedure. And I give the floor to Paraguay. Thank you very much, Chair. I do not want to extend this regular meeting any longer than necessary. Just to recall that we sent an invitation for the portrait of our heroine, which will be presented in the corresponding gallery. The portrait of Serafina Davalos, the first attorney and the main person who prepared the road for the enjoyment of women's rights in Paraguay. This is an important event for us, and I would like to have the representatives of the member states and the other missions that are accredited to the OAS, as well as, of course, the permanent observers and their delegations. You are warmly welcome. This is an important event, and I hope you will be there Tuesday, 24th of February at 9:30 in the morning before the city meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And so we know we are invited to this event on the 24th at 9:30, right? Okay, in the morning, says the chair. Very well. I see no further requests for the floor, and I immensely thanks all of you who have been here all day for this meeting. Thank you for your participation throughout the day. I thank you so very much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Que pasen buena noche y no que-